folks, and welcome to another episode of the Snowy's Camping Show with Ben and Lauren. How are you, Ben?
I'm well, thank you.
Awesome. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast, whether that be on YouTube or Spotify or your favourite podcast app. Now, today we're doing another one of our Q&A editions where we pick a topic that is potentially relevant to the season. And this one sort of is because we're getting back up into that sort of summer holidays, Christmas holidays. Heaps of people are trying to get out and about and do a lot of different camping, bush camping, coastal camping, all that hoo-ha. And we're going to be covering things like keeping your camp tidy, organisation, gear tips, things like that. So we've pulled out all of our top questions over the last few years relating to campsite organisation and keeping organising more of a smart space, and popped it all together into one episode. So stay tuned. We're going to cover things like how to keep sand and dirt out, setting up windbreaks to keep everything nice and tidy, storing food, useless gear, luxury gear, all sorts of things like that.
Do you know what we should do in these episodes?
What should we do?
Is because I haven't said anything yet, so I feel like I should say something.
Okay.
We've had, 4 studios now, I think, that we've gone through. So we should we
have 4.
We should see if we can get a poll on how many studios people pick up in the episodes, because I don't know how far back some of these episodes are commonly asked questions date to. So you seem to see well,
not everyone
some
will
younger
be watching.
People.
Lots of people will be listening.
Yeah, good. Yeah, let's not do that then. I've said something.
They'll
now,
see
so that's
younger
right.
Benji. I haven't aged a day, mate.
I'm a little bolder.
Yeah, you probably see thinner versions of me. I can tell you that much for free.
Anyway, this is where our videographer takes over and does all the editing for us for this episode to make it easy. So
let's get into it.
Right. Haley from Facebook, how to limit the amount of sand and dirt little feet bring into our swags? Good question. We have a 3-week trip planned with a mixture of beach, bush and campground swagging with a 2 and a 5-year-old. I always sort of generally have not stressed too much about it, because I think there's not a huge amount that you can do about it. You know what I mean? Sometimes it goes into the too hard basket. There is sort of ways you can manage it by having shoes at the door, and even if it's just slip-on shoes, it's better if they've got shoes on when they're outside, because it reduces the amount of stuff they have on their feet to begin with.
Yep.
Having some sort of matting, like those little foam hole mattings and things like that, can be good to just stomp your feet a little bit to get stuff falling off. But also often I'll have, if I'm going away, and in the past when I've been tent camping, if I've gone away for any period of time, having a little dustpan and brush inside the doorway, just to sort of brush off the feet and sort of keep things a bit clean.
I agree with that. I've got a dustpan, shoes outside. You can. We don't sell it at Snowy's, but I think it's called muck mat.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of those.
Synthetic grass mat that just goes at the door. There's something else you've got to carry, but I always have a mesh ground sheet and shoes off on the outside. But don't stress over it too much. You're going to get down in there. Try to keep it out of your bed, but you'll get a bit in the tent and then just sweep it up.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Okay. Oh, this one was recently posted in the Facebook group as a discussion point as well from Janet. The right way to stake a tent.
Oh.
Some say 45 degrees away from the tent. Others say 45 degrees towards the tent, and some say vertically. And I'm not 100% sure what she was talking about, but there was there was a expansion on that in the actual thread that followed, and I believe it was to do with the angle, not the guy rope, but the physical tent peg itself and how it's oriented with the guy rope.
What, the top? Well, because there's the peg and then there's the hook at the top, right? And
I'm jumping on to have a quick double check that I'm getting this right.
So my understanding of what they're asking is with the long part of the peg, if you've got a guy rope coming down and you've got a loop and you're going to place a peg through that guy rope, do you place the long part of the peg so it's in line with the way that the rope is running, which doesn't make sense to me because it's going to pull out very easily? Do you place it straight down, which I think is better than in the same angle as the rope, or do you place it at 45 degrees? Now, by 45 degrees, it's probably better actually saying perpendicular to to the rope. So it's at 90 degrees
Yeah,
to
because
the rope.
the rope's on an angle and if your peg's on a 45-degree angle, if you tilt your head and look at it, it's literally a 90-degree
that's right,
intersection.
Yeah. So you're putting it at the opposite angle to the guy rope. That's how I've always done it. And I think I did answer that question actually. If you think I went back to like dead man weights. So I've done a bit of vertical rescue previously, and also when you talk about snow anchors and that sort of thing. The idea with some snow anchors, like a dead man anchor in the snow, is that it goes in the snow at a 45-degree angle, and as the weight pulls on that, the only way it can go is deeper down. So it constantly digs deeper and deeper into the soil. The only limitation is the force at which the material that's sitting on top of that weight is going to hold it. So in sand, a tent peg is going to pull out easily, but in clay, that force on top, or the dirt sitting on top of the peg is harder to sort of pull it through. So if you've got that long edge of the peg against that weight, then there's more surface area pushing against it. So I say perpendicular or at the opposite angle.
Yeah,
to the guy
away.
rope.
So in terms of Janet's question, away from the tent.
Yeah. So yes, I think so. So yes. So the top of the peg is pointing
away from the tent or the awning or the pole or whatever you've got.
And by the top, we don't mean the loop that goes over the longest bit of the peg is pointing up.
Yeah. So when you're hammering it into the ground, you're hammering it in.
Yep.
So it's angled away from the tent.
If it was long enough, the end of the peg would end up going so deep that it would be below the tent.
Mm-hmm.
Probably going over the top. We're trying to explain.
Yeah, but I honestly, I can't see how there's any other way to do it. I've never, ever, ever, ever seen it done any other way.
No, I didn't think it was a question.
One thing I'm wondering about with that though is whether or not, instead of it being visual, if you're trying, like, think about how difficult it's been for us to make sure that we're saying it correctly, what's in our mind. I'm wondering if someone's saying, if you hammer 45 degrees towards the tent, they're talking about you have the tip facing the tent and the head facing away from the tent. And so when you're hammering it in, you're actually hammering it into the ground towards the tent. And so that's what they're talking about. But someone else who might read that is thinking in their mind that the top of the tent peg is actually pointing towards the tent. Do you know what I mean? Whereas everyone's actually talking about the same thing. It's just the interpretation of how someone's described it that's different.
Yeah. I'd say just stick to doing it 90 degree, perpendicular or 90 degrees to the guy rope.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be exactly 90, but thereabouts.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
This is from Matthew. Has anyone made up their own windbreak? I was thinking of using shade cloth and star droppers. Thinking star droppers might be on the heavy and awkward side to store of things though. Are there aluminium poles that would be suitable? I would say definitely. I wouldn't take star droppers because, they're heavy and probably a little bit dangerous if, like, in an accident or anything. I'm thinking a star dropper, even if you sort of strap it on tightly, if that starts to move, it's going to become a spear that there's a lot of weight behind it. But I would consider using, I guess in saying that though, the steel poles is probably the same thing. So whatever you strap on to the roof rack or wherever you put it, make sure it's well secure and not going to be a danger. But aluminium poles are a weight saving option. And I would use a combination of a tarp and I've lost for words here and aluminium poles. So I'm trying to think what I would do. I guess I take a tarp. I take like a mesh tarp, there's ultra mesh tarp. It's just a very affordable mesh tarp, and that I take that as sort of three different things. I suppose it's a ground sheet. If I want a ground sheet, I've got a separate one for the tent, but it's a ground sheet for, say, dining area if I need it wherever I'm camping. It's also something I can use to sort of put on the side of the car as a bit of an awning for a lunch stop or something like that. And if need be, I can also use it to set up a bit of a windbreak. And I would have a couple of spare aluminium or awning type poles that I would use to set that up. Yeah.
You said, did you say an ultra mesh tarp or is the mesh tarp effective as a windbreak?
Well,
because I'd be wondering whether or not mesh really or shade clothy type is really going to be effective.
It doesn't stop it. No, it slows it down. But if you have the downside with if you use just a non-wind permeable windbreak, is that your poles or whatever you use needs to be rock solid, right?
Yeah.
Because you end up putting up this big sort of sail and wind's pretty powerful, right? And if you spread that out across, say, even a 2 by 3 meter tarp, that's a lot of force on that. And a lot of force on the poles and the pegs and Whereas if you use a mesh, excuse me, and this is my rationale behind it. If you use a mesh tarp, it slows the wind down. You get a bit of breeze, but you don't get quite as much strain. So you're not worried about keeping it upright.
Similar to like privacy screens and stuff for caravan awnings and things, I guess.
It'll cut out a lot of it. And if you fold it in half, because usually I don't need 6 by 3 meters of windbreak. I might just need 3 meters by 2 or something like that. So you can kind of double it over, and that then cuts the wind out as well.
I mean, when we always used to go away with Nana and Pa doing like the huge big family camp things to the outback, they had star droppers and big canvas things, and we'd create like big corrals and canvas shelters and things like that as a windbreak. But I think it depends what you invest in for that situation, depends on the kind of camping that you're doing, because I don't really think star droppers and a canvas or what have you is going to be really a viable option for weekend trips. But if you are going somewhere where you're setting up for a week and like you said, you do have a safe way to transport them, then I would say that they're going to be your best option because they're pretty bomb proof.
Yeah.
But then if you are using things like awning poles or other sort of poles that you're not hammering into the ground, then you're going to have you're going to need like quite a few guy ropes and tracer springs and a series of different sort of pegs. So I'd question whether or not sort of it's worth it. I mean, I don't personally have a windbreak in my camp setup and have never had a need for it. We have, I guess, because we've got the van as well. If you're strategic, like when you rock up, you can check the weather forecast. You can have an idea of the direction of the wind and sort of first and foremost set up your camp to account for that. That reduces your need for a windbreak.
Yeah.
But I suppose if you do need a windbreak, like if it needs to be hardcore, star droppers and, your tarps could probably going to be your only option. Otherwise you could. Can you get lighter weight star droppers?
Oh, well, yeah, probably. But you can get like plastic kind of garden posts and stuff, but they just flex.
Yeah, I don't like them.
So I guess if you use star droppers and you've got a way to get them in the ground and get them out again, then you don't have to worry about guy ropes, but they're heavy to cut. But if you use poles, I didn't mention before, but guy ropes and good pegs and everything, you're going to need all that. But I agree with you that I don't take that tarp with the idea. I said it's 3 uses. It's a ground sheet or a shade cloth predominantly. And I guess I could set up a windbreak if I needed to, but I've never actually just set up a windbreak. I've used, same as you, the car, or I've got side panels and stuff on the tent and position the tent as such so that I can create a wind-free space, the tent, and use all the guy ropes on the tent. So that'd be my take on it.
Cool.
Unpacking at home rituals and gear checks and maintenance, wet or windy weather activities. Well, the first one, unpacking at home rituals, my wife and I just have, we get home and we just unpack the car straight away. We don't wait. We don't sit down. We don't do anything. We get home, 4 out the drive, the back door's open and we're already carrying stuff inside. We do it straight away.
Yep.
I've made note while I'm camping about anything I need to address or refill while I'm camping. So I think about it when I get home and I do all that straight away. Pack it up, hang the tent out if it needs to dry, everything I can, stuff in the wash, things go back in the shed, all packed away straight away. So that if I leave it to the next day, then I'm less motivated. So
I saw this question, Lynette, and I felt a little bit attacked because I probably need to polish up on my getting home routines and rituals. For us, we usually don't end up getting home until quite late. And so it's a lot of the time it's just leave to the next day. The only things that really do come out straight away are laundry bag and rubbish and any food related things. So like anything out of the fridge or the Eskies or whatever we've got. And then generally the rest of it, like pulling apart, restocking, cleaning the van, that sort of happens over the course of the week. But anything immediate. I think because we have the van.
Yep.
It's different because it's not our daily car.
Kind of set up to go.
And it just sits there and that's the only reason why so if we don't get to doing it straight away, there's no issue because I don't have to use the car to drive to work and do school run the next morning or what have you. But laundry and food related stuff and rubbish that gets dealt with.
Yeah. My kitchen kit usually goes aside. We give all the dishes a good wash with really hot water because we've often used maybe not really hot water when we're camping. And then I check oil and anything else and fill it all up and then it goes lid back on and back in the shed. So it's good to go for next time.
I generally try to do all the dishes before we leave and that's part of the kitchen pack up before we go.
Oh,
so for the most part, I don't have anything unresolved in the kitchen except for topping stuff up.
Yeah. Best thing is when it hasn't been raining, you can pack the tent up and you have to hang the tents out when you get home. You can
Yes,
just
of
pack it
course,
straight away.
tents. Yeah,
'Cause
and
if you've
having
got a
to
wet
put the
tent,
tent up,
Yeah.
pain in the butt. But
And-
still, it's really important.
Oh, yeah, you got to do it.
Yeah.
And as soon as you get home, really, you don't
As soon
want
as
to
I
leave it
get,
too long, especially
if
it's
I
canvas.
know I've packed a tent away that's got wet, even if it's just the morning frost or moisture, it doesn't matter if we get home at 11 o'clock at night. I put it up in the patio.
Quite often it's wet underneath, and if that's the case, I'll try and dry it before I've packed it up at the camp. So pack your tents up, roll it over, let the bottom dry so I can just pack it up. Goes in the roof rack. Then when we get home, comes straight out and straight to the shed because it's a pain in the bum having to get the tents out again.
Of course. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And wet or windy weather activities. Well, wet weather's all right. It's nothing quite like sitting under an awning, playing games, reading a book or whatever when it's wet. Windy is the pits because you try and play games and your cards are blowing everywhere. It's a bit of a pain in the bum. So try and create a bit of a windproof corner and, I don't know, listen to some music or read a book or just bunker down,
we
take it
haven't
easy.
really, off
Enjoy
the
some
top of
food.
my head, there hasn't been a huge amount of windy trips that we've had, except for one that stands out that was living hell. And in that case, most of the days that was super windy. We just sort of, over the period of the most windy parts of the day, just chilled out, laid in bed, read books, had some snacks, just chilled out around the camp.
We'll quite often just play games with the kids in the tent, get them out the wind because they're bothered by the wind too.
Yeah. And same with wet weather. We've got a huge big shade, like a massive big shelter that we put up if it's wet.
That's
and
cool.
it's doesn't actually really matter then because if it's raining or not.
Yeah. Rain's kind of nice. The patter on the patter of rain on the tent. On
Definitely.
The top. Yeah.
This one's from Lynette. For Facebook group, securing food from pests, just anything. I mean, we got cupboards, right, that zip up, but they don't seal it in an actual, like a Tupperware or similar type container.
I have a feeling we did an episode on this sometime really early in the early days.
Possibly.
Like about, camping with critters and I can't remember. About sort of food safety and stuff.
If I've got food that is in its original packaging, then I'm relatively comfortable just having that, say, in a tub that's got a lid sitting on top or it's stacked tubs. If I've opened that packaging, then it's got to go in like an airtight container because ants and things, the ones that will get through all the little gaps are the ones that are going to get into it.
Yeah. We obviously we've got the van, as everybody knows, and if you've listened to our Kangaroo Island episode, you would have heard about the possums that were prolifically raiding our van every night because we were sleeping with the door open. So, but for the most part, we have our food in storage drawers and things like that in the van under the bed, so that's not too much of an issue. But agree with you about having a good solid plastic food storage tub to have and having the lid that either clicks on with a seal or something on top to weight it down is generally the way to go.
Something big enough, so the gaps are small enough to stop, say, rodent, like a mouse getting in.
Yeah.
But as soon as I've opened it, then you got to seal from ants and other small
and I think the other thing as well is when you are getting a plastic tub, if you're looking at plastic tubs for food storage, be aware that mice can chew through those collapsible silicone tubs really easily, the silicone sections, and some super thin plastics. So just be aware that you're getting a good quality storage box if you are going somewhere where, mice and rodents and potentially plague-related stuff will be an issue.
Mr. R, there's a two-part question. Firstly, tips for keeping vermin, as in mice, rats, snakes, ants, and cockroaches, out of your camping gear while both in storage and whilst being used on the campsite. I could not imagine anything worse than rolling out a sleeping bag for the first night and realising a mouse had made home in there during the previous month while in storage. There's a lot to answer there. I think the main thing is try and store it in a airy kind of space. Inspect it regularly while it's in storage, and maybe check it before you go camping. I know at home, for example, our little garden shed, I get little cockroaches and stuff in there all the time because I just stuff tarps and all sorts of, bird netting and that sort of stuff in there, and it creates lots of little spaces for these cockroaches to live in. I don't really care because it's a garden shed, right? Plus I've also got manure and fertilizer and all those things that they love. My camping gear is stored in my shed, which doesn't have all that stuff in it. So I'm not attracting
separate sheds,
vermin and stuff for that smell. And it's stored in such a way that there's a bit more ventilation around it, I suppose. The other thing is use it often. That way the vermin don't have a chance to settle in. When you're at the campsite,
Yeah, I just quickly before you go on to the next one, I was going to say, I don't think there would ever be a time where I arrive to a campsite and set up and be like, oh my gosh, like this is in this condition, because I've already always checked before I go. And that if you get into the habit of making that part of your trip preparation, is that you just check your gear when you're at home, then you're not going to run into those sorts of issues.
Absolutely. Yep. At the campsite is harder because I always like to think I'm in their backyard, they're not in my backyard. I'm setting up on their home. So as I always say to the kids, you probably need to learn to just live with it, be aware that those things are there and live with it. Main things I say is food. Don't store food in your tent. Store it locked up in your car. Food scraps, clean them away from your tent. Put them, if there's any food scraps, put it in the bin, carry it out preferably. But even if it's just little crumbs, the kids have eaten a biscuit and there's little crumbs, just maybe don't get them to do it inside the tent or right outside the tent. And as for snakes, mice, snakes is just don't camp next to.
Snakes are there. Do you know what I mean? Make lots, like most, I don't know about you, but I don't think I've ever really had an issue with snakes. And I think for the most part, you make enough noise and, there's a lot going on around a campsite. Sometimes I've had odd occasions where there has been a brownie or something. I think there was one of the trips we went on not too long ago. There was a tiger snake that just sort of slithered through camp. But, we're in a clearing in the middle of the bush and it just went from one side of the clearing to the other and just kept going about its business, and you just happen to be on its pathway. It's not interested in hanging around or bothering you or whatever. But there's only going to be certain times of year where that's really applicable, right? Except obviously if you live in Queensland or somewhere tropical and you have those like big, I was going to say a bad word there, but the ones that will literally eat your dog. Don't know about those. So I can't give you any advice on snakes big enough to eat your dog. But
I'm the same. I've camped and I've seen snakes within 10, 20 meters of the campsite go from bush on that side across the track to the bush on the other side. So they're there. Don't camp in those leafy, bushy spots where they can hide. Try and camp in a clearing and just be aware that they're there. Zips on the tents where you can, put the zipper to the top or make sure the zips are closed up really tight so that vermin, spiders, anything can't get in through that zipper.
I think sometimes we've had some gear returned to Snowy's sort of on a warranty claim, which wasn't a warranty claim because mice had just chewed straight through it. Like silicone food tubs and sort of all sorts of stuff. But it's just one of those situations where there are going to be certain areas of the country or certain times of year where mice will be more of an issue than others. The only times that I've ever really had issues with mice and stuff at a campsite is when we've been in regions that are experiencing a bit of a mice plague. Generally outside of that, there's really no issue. I mean, sometimes campsites we've had possums come in at night, but again, that's just a matter of making sure that all of your food tubs are, you've got clickable lock food tubs and your rubbish is away and things like that.
I've had issues with mice twice.
Yes.
Which is still a very small percentage compared to the amount of nights I spent camped out.
Correct, yeah.
They can be the pits they've got in the car.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to stop mice from getting into the car because there are so many spots that they can just find their way in. And I remember hearing them running around between the roof lining and the roof. So, and I had like polystyrene coming out of my air vents and stuff. So they were making a nest in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And every time I turned the air conditioner on, I was obviously blowing their nest away and then they had to go and make it again. So I had a car full of polystyrene. So somewhere in my car, there's
never gets old,
polystyrene that is supposed to be somewhere that isn't anymore.
Yes.
I caught it with a trap. If you haven't seen it, check out my big lap.
Ben half lap episode.
We
Don't
made
know
a
what
little
number
trap
it is.
out of water bottles and caught them with some Nutella. I won't go through the whole story again. I think I told it on that episode.
Yeah,
I
you did.
stood up trying to. So I started trying to catch them, but try and catch them sooner than later because they will make your car stink.
Yes.
Otherwise, keep everything locked up.
Yep. 2 items you thought would be useless and turned out to be very useful. 2 items you thought would be great but turned out to be unnecessary. So this is one of those questions, thanks, Sam, where I was like, ooh, because I was like, I want more time to think about that.
Yeah. One thing that comes to my mind is a paintbrush.
A paintbrush?
Yeah, an old paintbrush. And I reckon I got this advice from a a blog writer, Snowy's blog writer many, many years ago.
Is this the useless but turned out to be useful?
Well, I didn't take it and then found it was useless. But if I don't know, if I went camping and I'd left a paintbrush in my car and I went, I forgot to take that up for I went camping and then used it, I would have gone, actually, that's pretty handy.
Yeah.
Because especially outback travel, dusty, an old paintbrush, you can pull up and just use it to dust all the dust off the back of the car before you open the door. If you're setting up like the wheel on top of the wheel arches, sometimes in the trailer and stuff. If you've got a trailer, you might use that to prep lunch.
Yeah,
you can just brush it all off with a paintbrush. Dusting the tent, if a tent's dusty, just use a soft bristle paintbrush just to dust all the stuff off the tent. You can use it as a brush to sweep your tent out. So paintbrush.
And your two items you thought would be great but turned out to be unnecessary. One of them would be your awning, surely.
Yeah, I mentioned that before. Yeah, look, they're great, but just don't use it enough to warrant carrying it on the side.
Yeah.
I muck around trying to tie around it all the time. It gets in the way of the ropes and I don't set it up enough. So, yeah, awning. Not much else. I'm
just trying to make you give me more time to think.
You want me to keep talking?
You've got one other unnecessary item or one that you thought would be great and then it sort of wasn't. Do you have one?
No. No, I take such little stuff when I go camping that I have got a box of stuff that stuff gets relegated to when I don't use it. But I bought like a little, it's called a grandpa fork, I think, from Light My Fire, I reckon, which is a little thing that goes on the end of a stick that you cook marshmallows on.
What, and you don't like them?
Well, no, they're great, but you can just use a stick.
They're brilliant. I love mine, but that's okay. It's okay.
I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel.
All right. Well, two items that I thought would be useless and turned out to be very useful. I can't think about anything that I've thought was useless that turned out to be useful. There have been some things that I've bought that were way more awesome than I thought they would be. And one of those is those little collapsible tubs that come in a set of 4 and they're rectangular and different colours.
Do you know what I thought you were going to say then?
What?
It's one of those collapsible outdoor connection stools.
No, I haven't bought one of those. I'm coming round, but I haven't bought one. But those little tubs, I was like, these they're brilliant tubs and I use them all the time and I'm going to get another set. Oh. Then you always seem very focused on weight and functionality. Really? Good observation, Colin. But what do you take camping that isn't necessary or that you'd consider a luxury? Oh, I like this question.
Some would consider a coffee maker luxury, but that's a necessity to me.
You have to answer. You have to say something different to coffee. You've talked about your coffee maker being a luxury item before, so it can't be your coffee maker.
Well, if it's a luxury item, you don't take it. No. Okay, so we are planning a trip soon with the kids up and it's going to be going north. It's going to be hot and humid and I have put I'm going to take a 12-volt fan with me.
Okay.
So a luxury item maybe for the sanity of us, just so if the kids – because the kids are complaining at the moment, like it's spring here now, 25-degree days and they've stripped down to a tank top and shorts in the backyard going,
they're already complaining.
Hot, we need ice cream.
Yeah, right.
And it's going to be, 35, 40 degrees and humid where we're going. So I thought a fan's probably good for sanity there.
Yeah. Which one did you get? Just out of curiosity?
I've had it for a long time. I never used it, but just there's outdoor connection breezeway fan. It backs up nice and flat so you can slot it in nice and easily.
Really flat.
And it's
they're
quite
really
big,
large, aren't they? But quite flat.
Yeah, it's really small, so they don't do much, but this is quite big.
Yeah.
And I had to play with it on the weekend actually, and I don't know what the current draw is. I think it's less than an amp, I reckon, but it doesn't even pull the voltage down on the battery when you turn it on.
Oh, so that's awesome.
I should be able to run
You'll
that
be fine with that.
a bit. So, other luxury items, I don't know. I'm sounding like a boring camper now, aren't I? I mean, I like to take beer or some whiskey, I suppose, is a luxury item. But whiskey in the winter, beer in the summer. But that's if I've got room for it.
Yeah, but not trip. Luxury gear.
Not really
nothing real luxury.
Gear. No, not really. Sorry, I'm boring. I swear, I'm going to show people my setup in camp
Yeah,
in the back of my
that's
car
good.
one day. And I'm pretty sure everyone's going to be bitterly disappointed at how boring.
Yeah, I know.
and simple it
Sometimes
is.
I think that as well. People ask like, "Oh, what's your setup?" And I'm like, "I don't want to show you."
There's nothing fancy.
Imposter syndrome.
It's not Instagram.
Yeah.
You know,
It's real
level
life, isn't
stuff.
it?
It's just white tubs in a car with a fridge and a bit of
But
stuff
still.
chucked around it.
Still.
Yeah. Anyway,
Things to keep in the emergency kit, e.g., I don't know if that's a typo or if an emergency kit is.
An emergency in case of emergency.
Yeah.
Get your emergency.
Probably some sort of efficient zombie weapon in an emergency kit.
Yeah.
But in a normal singular emergency kit, zip ties, duct tapes, etc. Yep, absolutely.
He's pretty much covered off.
Yeah,
That's all you
zip
need.
ties, duct tape. That's
all you
about
need.
it. We did do an episode which isn't directly about this, but episode 68 we did with Kev was spare bits for your caravan kit, emergency stuff. I'd probably say most of what he talked about in that episode that he has in his kit is one that everybody should have. It's just things like fuses, zip ties, tape, sort of a whole range of different sorts of things. Obviously, you're going to have a first aid kit, an emergency sort of first aid kit, which is I would think about as maybe differently to an emergency kit.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
not sure.
assuming we're talking about
But things
emergency equipment.
Yeah, but
First aid
things like,
kit's
for
another story.
example, a PLB is definitely something to have in an emergency kit, medical or otherwise. Also ration packs or just some dehydrated food just in case. And it also depends on your trip. Like obviously if you're just heading down to your local Big Four, you really don't need to worry about it because if there's any sort of emergency, you just walk over to the phone. But if you're heading somewhere more outback or remote, then you're going to want to have different things. So things like ration packs, water store, like just water store that you just agree not to touch unless it's an absolute emergency. One thing that we have is, and I know we talked about it in our CFS episode, is woolen blankets, those vintage wool blankets. They're really great for a whole range of different reasons. Not only are they warm, but they're excellent for fires and things like that as well.
So my kit, if I'm not talking about the emergency, so I've got first aid kit and I've got PLB, that's always in the car, but the emergency kit being a little tub that I've got tucked away in the back of my car with some emergency bits for repair. Zip ties and duct tape, WD-40.
Yep.
I also carry some spare wheel nuts, things that I need to basically help me limp into the next town if I need to.
Yeah, right.
Some spare hose clamps, and I now have a length of spare hose. Bit hard to carry all the hoses because they're all different sizes, but it was after REA come and helped me with a blown radiator hose once, REA being our roadside service people. And he just had a length of hose and he went, oh, that fits about right. And then he put clamps. He goes, oh, you should be right
if
to
you got
drive home.
hose clamps, you can sort of make anything work, even if it's a bit bigger, right?
I drove around for weeks before I could get the right part for it. So it was fine. It
Yeah,
worked.
yeah.
I just had this big long hose, but now I've taken that off and I've kept that as an emergency. So you could probably limp into a town with that. I carry a spare fuel filter.
Okay,
Because
good one.
common rail diesel, dirty fuel just can get you back on the road again.
Yep.
I'm trying to think what else I've got in that kit. Just some random screws, bolts, fuses. I have a whole heap of, some electrical wire.
Yep.
Shrink wrap,
Yep.
blade things for stuff that you can just kind of MacGyver yourself out.
Yeah.
Bush mechanic yourself out
Bush
of
mechanic-y style
trouble.
things, yeah.
You could go overboard, right? If you look at a list of what they say you should take,
You'd end up with
you could
something,
take a lot of stuff. You probably, I think the best mindset is go out trying to take what you can, make sure your car's serviced and your caravan's in good nick. Go out with everything you need to try and get you out of trouble, but be aware that something might happen that you or your mechanic couldn't foresee.
Yeah.
And you might be stuck somewhere. And that's kind of part of that type of travel.
Yeah.
And you just need to then work it out. Either PLB or hopefully the phone reception or call on help to get a part or tow or whatever you need. That was probably a long-winded answer to that question.
Well, lucky we didn't have to do too much talking today because I don't think you would have coped with a full episode. So you got a blast of us from the past. Lots of commonly asked questions in there.
Yeah.
lose track of how many times we've discussed these. Do we even talk about the topic at the start? Did we mention that?
We did, yeah.
We did? I can't remember.
Yeah, we did.
It was like 3 minutes ago, so I've forgotten. But I hope you enjoyed that. I'm sure there are more questions that come from this topic.
Yeah.
We'd love to know what they are. We'd love to discuss them potentially in future episodes. Put them in the comments on this video. If you're on YouTube, jump on our Facebook group, ask the questions there. If someone's going to answer it before us nowadays, probably there's heaps of people with lots of awesome knowledge in that group. But thanks for tuning in.
We'll catch you next time.
See you next time.